Hello and welcome back. In this video we're going to look at exercise 12-3 in your study guide. So this is a classic make or buy decision. We have a company here that makes they manufacture a variety of engines for use in heavy equipment. The company has always produced all of the parts for its engines, including carburetors. An outside supplier has offered to sell one type of carburetor to this company for a cost of $35 per unit. Okay. To evaluate this offer, the company has gathered the following information relating to its own cost of producing the carburetor internally. And we have the costs on a per unit basis, as well as for the total 15,000 units that they need. So part 1 says, assuming the company has no alternative use for the facility that are now being used to produce the carburetor. That's important because there's no opportunity cost that we have to consider. They want us to determine what the financial advantage or disadvantage is of buying 15,000 carburetors from an outside supplier. So what we did here is we broke everything down into make or buy, right? We're going to present the information on a per unit basis, and we're going to look at it in total. Okay, so the cost of purchasing, I'm just going to say purchasing. If we buy it per unit, it's going to cost us $35. However, in total, it's going to cost us $525,000. Now we can look at the costs that we're going to incur if we make it versus what we're going to save if we, obviously buy it. So the first cost we have is direct materials, and they tell us that on a per unit basis we use $14 of direct materials to make one carburetor. So in order for us to make 15,000 carburetors, we incur direct material cost in total of $210,000. If we buy, we forgo that cost, so it's relevant. Next is direct labor, right? We pay our staff $10 per carburetor that they make. However, in total, 15,000 units or over 15,000 units, we pay them $150,000. The next thing we have is the variable MOH. And we know that on a per unit basis, that's $3. However, in total, over those 15,000 units, that costs us 30 grand. The next thing we have are the fixed manufacturing overhead, which are traceable. Okay. They tell us in the problem that it is $6. Okay, it's $6. However, 1/3 of that $6 is supervisor salary. 2/3 of that fixed cost is depreciation on special equipment, no resale value. So they gave us our fixed MOH, and they give us a little note that says, oh, by the way, 1/3 of that is supervisor salary, which you will obviously forgo if you buy them. You don't incur that fixed cost. But the 2/3 of that $6, which is depreciation, yeah, that's a sunk cost, and that's irrelevant. So 1/3 of 6 should be 2. In total, the fixed MOH that we forgo is $30,000. I apologize. 3 times 15,000 is not 30,000. That is 45,000. Okay. The fixed manufacturing overhead, which is allocated, that's $9. It doesn't matter if we make them or buy them. we still incur that fixed manufacturing overhead of $9 per unit or $135,000. Guess what? It's irrelevant. Why? Because it's there under both scenarios. So the total cost then for us to make them is $29 versus the $35 to buy them on a per unit basis. If we look at it in total, the total cost to make is $435,000. To buy them, obviously, it's $525,000. So we could see that we're at a disadvantage here, right? On a per unit basis, there's a $6 difference between the 29 bucks it costs us to make it and the $35 it would cost us to buy it. So we're in the hole $6 if we buy it. In total, we're actually $90,000 in the hole by buying. So there is a disadvantage of buying the carburetors. And I'm going to type that in there. Buying carburetors. Okay. Now the second one says, should the outside supplier offer be accepted? Nope. Based on the data that we have, that we just calculated here, we'd be worse off if we bought them. We'd be $90,000 worse off, right? We're going to reject that offer, and we're going to continue to produce those carburetors internally, okay? Now, number 3 says, suppose that if the carburetors were purchased, meaning we don't make them anymore, we're going to buy them, the company could use the freed up space to launch a new product. That new segment margin for the new product would be $150,000 per year. Given this assumption, what would be the financial advantage or disadvantage of buying 15,000 carburetors from an outside supplier? So right off the bat, we have an opportunity cost we need to consider, right? If we make these carburetors, what are we giving up? Well, we're giving up $150,000 per year in segment margin of this new product. Okay? So let's determine, should we make or should we buy under this new assumption? Well, the cost of purchasing we already figured out, right? We already calculated that it's $525,000. In fact, the problem told us that. Okay? The cost of making, well, we already figured that out too. The cost of making, which we figured out in part A, or item 1, was $435,000. So I'm going to plug that in too. Now we have the opportunity cost that we have to consider. Okay, what is the opportunity cost? Well, that is the segment margin forgone. Which is $150,000. So now, what is the cost for us to make it? Well, $435,000 of actual cost incurred, plus we're giving up $150,000. It's going to cost us $585,000 now. The cost to buy it, well, it's still $525,000. So, there is, based on this situation, with the opportunity cost, there is there is actually a $60,000 advantage to buying the carburetors. Okay, so again, given this new assumption, yep, we're going to accept that offer. Okay, because we can make an additional 150,000 of segment margin. Okay, when we come back for our next video, we're going to look at exercise 12-4, which is a special order. Should we do a special order? And excuse me, we'll figure out how to make that decision, or we'll see how to make that decision. So please tune back in for that one.